encourage you to monitor that. So the summary kind of this opening part is we need to work intentionally to create a vision and strategies for economic development and diversification, but don't underestimate or underappreciate retail and services for us. That is, in many ways, the economic base. Now, I'm not saying that a job at Freddy's is the equivalent of a lost job at the power plant. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we've got to respect the whole big picture and how, as a local government, we play into it. Okay? All right. Budget process. Don't worry, Mr. Mayor. But you took 10 minutes of my time. I want you to know. I marked it. So we'll see how this goes. Our budget process, the mayor already alluded to this. It's practically a 12-month process. We finish one and we get a little bit of take our breath and we're back working at it. March to January, our city staff and department heads and budget team are really starting to put together numbers. Now think about this, since our fiscal year does not start until July 1, when we are initially planning the budget, we're looking at an 18-month planning window. So think about how volatile things have been. We have literally been changing this budget weekly since we started, and probably will continue until we find somewhere we settle in. April, we begin the process with the City Council, work on the utility budgets primarily and the capital improvement plan. Then we get right where this is right where we are right now. This happened yesterday. This is happening today. And actually, this actually happened here. According to state statute, then we work on this budget, and then I'm required as the city manager to submit a budget to the City Council. And it has to be my best judgment and fiscal responsibility to present to them a budget that I think balances those things that I just talked about, not overreacting with underreacting. Then the council mulls it over for the month of May, and then ultimately adopts a final budget that we submit to the state. Okay. Here's our budget in a nutshell. In this respect, it was easy this year because it's flat. So revenue budget, this is total revenue now, not just GRT, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. So GRT is down, but some of the other revenues have remained solid. And as you know, the City Council was forced to put in a new tax effective January 1st to make up for the hold harmless. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. All these numbers are inclusive of the new tax. So all the bad numbers I'm going to show you, they've already eaten up the new tax, so to speak. There's no relief really from it. But we would be in absolute crisis if the council had not put in that tax in January. I mean, we would be cutting $4 to $7 million from this budget, which, trust me when I tell you, would desecrate our services. It would literally mean police officers, a fire station, several parks closed, cutting the library probably in half. I mean, on and on. It's things we don't want to do as a community. And I spent all that time at the front half of this trying to illustrate why we can't let our quality of life fall apart, because it would have an exponential domino effect on us. If this was no longer a place people wanted to come and shop, we would see everything exponentially drop out and be in a true death cycle. The reason we're not in a death cycle is because we are more diversified as an economy than probably we generally give ourselves credit for. So revenues staying the same, total expenditures staying the same, actually cutting them a little bit. So this represents, again, the budget that I proposed to the council yesterday. Now, from a GRT standpoint only, which is one portion of our revenue, we're actually building a budget around a very conservative projection that GRT will be 10% below what we budgeted for in 16. So on a budget basis, so give ourselves that. We've got to get under it, position ourselves to try to recover. So this is going to be a very, very lean year. Our employees are not getting any raise whatsoever, but most of our employees totally recognize and understand what the private sector is going through and are grateful for their jobs and remain dedicated to serving our public and serve our way through this crisis. But our employees contribute directly to tax revenue creation by providing the services that we provide the safe environment, the public utilities that work so that this place can stay economically diverse through our retail and commercial service hub. This is a status of where we are just in 9 months into the year financially. Total revenue, again, counting the new tax. The new tax at this point would have been in place for 1 month, and it wasn't budgeted. So that's all extra money in terms of relating it to being on budget. So we're actually over budget in GRT, or in total revenue, but that's because the new tax is in there, and expenditures are under budget. So we're living with our means, we're managing ourselves well, continue to position ourselves to be able to weather the storm as best as it can possibly be weathered, and minimizing the impact on our citizens. So kind of the big picture, back to when you visualize that picture of the size of Farmington and what we are as the hub and as the electric utility for the entire county, gives you an idea. This is the size of Farmington's government. We are the 4th largest municipal government in the state of New Mexico. Your mayor and city council lead the 4th largest city as far as government, municipal government in the state of New Mexico. We're 4th. Drops off pretty quick. Hobbs, we hate them, by the way. They fell further than us, but they're already starting to recover. So I really don't like the city manager. I do. I like him a lot. You know I'm kidding. But you get an idea of how it drops down. Put that in some perspective of the other regional governments. San Juan County, their total budget's about $130 million. So City of Farmington's roughly twice the size of the San Juan County government. San Juan College, we're roughly 3 times the size of San Juan College. Farmington Municipal Schools, City of Farmington's roughly 2 times the size of Farmington Schools. And then just for comparison point, Aztec and Bloomfield, Aztec's budget's about $37 million, Bloomfield's about $16 million. So we are by far the largest government agency in this region, by far, and we are the 4th largest municipal government in the entire state of New Mexico, one of the 4 MSAs. So again, keeping the perspective of nothing about, when you think about the city of Farmington, nothing matches the benchmark of our 45,000 population. Nothing, at any level or stage. Okay, so let's go to the total budget. So that $270 million budget, where does it go? How's it broken down? We're going to focus most of our time in these 3 green up here. These are the tax-supported parts of our budget. That most of the services that you think of as traditional government services are coming out of the general fund or a sub-component of the GRT funds in these green. That's the general fund, the streets, and the parks department. All these others are either enterprise funds or special funds that are separate. Lodger's tax, where we run all the lodger's tax through. The electric utility, it's about $110 million of the $270 million. Water, utilities, and so that's how it breaks down. So we're going to focus here, so of the $271 million budget, we're going to focus on these 3 moving forward now. So here's what those look like. General fund, these are the tax-supported. Here's where the money comes from. The blue, which you can't read the numbers, the blue part of the pie is the largest. That's gross receipts taxes. So we live heavily on what happens out there in the cash registers. Our biggest threat, other than the oil and gas industry right now, our biggest threat, bar none, is internet sales. It's not just an emotional shop local plea. I'm telling you that it is the greatest threat to municipal governments in the state of New Mexico. Our tax structure is so broken in this state that it is designed in a way that it's not possible to capture any revenue out of internet sales. The entire system is going to have to be overhauled, and every single year we're seeing 20% increases nationally in internet sales. So I tell my employees, shop local as if your job depended on it, because it does, and I tell our citizens, shop locally as if every service that you've come to depend on and count on and take for granted shop as if those services dependent on it, because they do. This is something that will reach a absolute crisis place in our state within a couple of years. It's exasperated, obviously, by oil and gas being down. Finally, the state's starting to pay attention to it because they're hurting. And they're going, wow, what's happening? Because they've been living off the oil and gas, fat on the hog, so then they don't really care that much about GRT. We live on GRT, period. Even during the great oil and gas times, we live on GRT. Counties are a little more diversified. So you see then the rest of them, that's really, property tax is a little tiny sliver. The rest of these are everything from grants. Our dividend from the Farmington Electric Utility is in here. It's not all that, but that's, you see, we live on GRT. So things that threaten GRT threaten our very basic existence as a government.